The rain had been falling since morning, soaking every corner of the quiet town. Streets were empty except for the glowing reflections of streetlights bouncing off puddles. It was the kind of day when most people preferred to stay inside, sipping something warm, watching from behind windows as the storm went on. But not everyone had that choice. On a worn-out wooden bench by the side of the road sat a little girl. She was no more than 6 or 7, bundled up in a teal jacket, jeans, and bright sneakers that splashed in puddles when she walked. In her small hands, she clutched a black umbrella that was almost too big for her. Raindrops tapped against it in a steady rhythm. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, and she looked thoughtful, her eyes fixed on something in front of her. That something was a small brown puppy. The puppy sat in the rain, its fur damp and sticking flat against its body. Its eyes were wide, uncertain, and a little sad. Every few seconds it tilted its head, as though trying to understand why the girl wasn't afraid of it. The dog's collar was old, its tag missing, and its body trembled from the chill of the storm. Anyone else might have walked past, too busy, too hurried, or too cautious to notice. But the girl had stopped. She leaned forward, holding the umbrella slightly out, so its edge stretched toward the puppy. Not enough to cover him completely, but enough to let him know she was trying. "You look cold," she said softly, her voice barely louder than the rain. The puppy wagged its tail once, hesitantly. Then it whimpered, as if answering. The girl's heart tightened. She knew what loneliness felt like. Just last year, her family had moved to this town. She hadn't made many friends yet. At school, kids already had their circles, and she often sat by herself at lunch. Her parents worked long hours, and though they loved her, she sometimes felt like the quiet shadows of the house kept her company more than people did. Maybe that's why, when she saw the puppy alone in the rain, something inside her refused to walk away. Carefully, she slid down from the bench and crouched closer. "It's okay," she whispered, stretching out her tiny hand. "I won't hurt you." The puppy hesitated, ears twitching. Then, slowly, it padded forward. The girl smiled and angled the umbrella so the raindrops stopped falling on his head. The puppy blinked in surprise, sniffed her hand, and finally licked her fingers. She giggled, the sound bright against the gray afternoon. "There you go," she said. "Now you're safe." For a moment, time felt suspended. Just a little girl, a stray dog, and an umbrella that wasn't big enough for both, but still tried. A car passed slowly down the wet street. The driver glanced at the sight, this tiny figure shielding a puppy from the rain. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he smiled. Something about the image touched him. It reminded him of his own daughter, who had grown up and moved far away. He drove off with a lighter heart. Not long after, an elderly woman walking with a cane noticed the pair. She stopped, watched, and felt her eyes sting with warmth. She had lived in the neighborhood for years and had seen how busy and rushed people had become, how rarely anyone paused to notice small things. Yet here was a child, teaching kindness without saying a word. The woman later told her neighbor about it. Her neighbor told her grandson. By the next day, half the block had heard about the little girl who held her umbrella out for a puppy in the rain. But at that moment, the girl didn't care about being seen. She only cared about the puppy. She lifted it gently, wrapping it in her jacket. The puppy pressed against her chest, shivering less now, comforted by the steady beat of her heart. She looked down the road, wondering what to do. She couldn't leave him. When she got home, dripping wet and clutching the puppy, her mother's eyes widened. "Oh my goodness! Where did you find him?" The girl explained everything in a rush. Her father frowned at first, worried about the responsibility. But as the puppy wagged its tail and nuzzled into the girl's arms, even he couldn't resist softening. "We'll take him to the vet tomorrow," her mother said finally. "Make sure he's healthy. If no one comes looking for him," she smiled at her daughter. "Well, maybe he's meant to stay with us." The girl's heart leapt. She hugged the puppy tighter. For the first time in months, she felt like she belonged in this new town. She wasn't just the quiet girl who sat alone, she was the girl with the umbrella, the girl who had saved a friend. The puppy, who they later named Rusty, quickly became part of the family. He slept at the foot of her bed, followed her everywhere, and greeted her with boundless joy when she came home from school. With Rusty by her side, the girl found it easier to make friends. Other kids were curious about the cheerful dog, and conversations began more naturally. Slowly, her loneliness faded. But the story didn't end there. Months later, when spring came, the same elderly woman who had seen the girl in the rain fell on the sidewalk near the park. She struggled to get up, her cane out of reach. Just when she feared no one would notice, the girl appeared, Rusty trotting beside her. Without hesitation, the child ran to help, calling out for nearby adults. Together, they helped the woman to her feet. The woman looked at the girl and smiled through her tears. "It's you," she said softly. "The little one with the umbrella." Word spread again, but this time it wasn't just about the umbrella. It was about a girl whose heart was big enough to notice when someone needed care, whether they had 2 legs or 4. Years later, people in the town still remembered. They told the story to their children, about the little girl who sat on a bench in the rain, who didn't look away, who gave what she could, even if it was just the edge of an umbrella. And the children who heard that story grew up believing that kindness didn't have to be grand. Sometimes, it was as simple as pausing, noticing, and saying, "You're safe with me." Rusty grew old, his muzzle turning gray, but he never stopped following the girl who had once shared her umbrella. And the girl grew into a young woman whose kindness shaped the world around her in quiet, steady ways. It all began with one small choice on a rainy day. A choice to stop. A choice to care. A choice to share a little umbrella with someone who needed it most.